Round 3 of GT Cup Europe in 2023. Race number 2 from Circuit Paul Ricard. Now as we reach the midway point of the championship at this 5.8 kilometer circuit. Going into this weekend, Ivan Velasco and Jorge Cabezas for Mertel Motorsport lead the standings ahead of Evgeny Leonov's Volcano Motorsport Porsche. It's another classic Ferrari v Porsche battle that we are anticipating, and we've got it on the front row of the grid as well, with newcomers Rosso Corsa Racing in the Ferraris qualifying on pole position for today's race ahead of Fabio Babini's ZRS Motorsport Porsche. My name is Chris Stevens, alongside me George Morgan. And George, I think we're in for another treat here.
I think so. GT Cup Open certainly has delivered here so far this season. We've witnessed so many great moments as well. Round 3 brings us race 2 as well at Paul Ricard, and Andrea Bellici, after a successful qualifying session, planting his car up at the very top. Somewhat of a legend as well, as spoken of, has done it across many orders, from prototypes down to GT3s, across many different classifications and races, and he's partnered up with Innocenti. Fabio Babini, who took him all the way in yesterday's race as well. Of course, another stellar driver and talent to watch out for as they cross-pass in qualifying, swapping fastest laps for fastest laps. And then in behind, Ivan Velasco, who is also another name to watch out for, one of the Mertel Motorsport camp. They'll be swapping out for Jorge Cabezas when the driver change window opens up. Mertel, of course, looking to try and convert a promising qualifying performance from yesterday into a race win this weekend.
And the AM pole position going to Quentin Antonell this morning, the Carrera Cup Benelux driver, who is with Q1 Track Racing, starting 4th overall. The Formula Renault Cup Rookie champion as well from last year. The Frenchman making his debut this weekend in the GT Cup Europe and starting from 4th on the grid. Here is the man 2nd place in the championship, Evgeny Leonov for Volcano Motorsport, or Volcano Motorsport if you want to give it the full Spanish pronunciation. Starting well ahead of behind, I should say, Ivan Velasco, who leads the championship, starting from 3rd place.
Yeah, Mello will be looking to try and enlarge certainly try and gain a few places anyway, starting 7th place. Of course, that'll be made much harder with Evgeny Leonov starting in 6th as well. Alex Ryman, of course, who would take on the race win yesterday and did so in great style. He is going solo right through this race, but the young man certainly capable of performing to a high level. Has obviously got Eugenio Pisani alongside him, Alexandra Boschez as well in place of Mikel for now, but Mikel will come in during the midway point of the season.
Yes, and it looks like we are down to 21 cars for this race. We saw Mario Cordoni attempt to take part in qualifying this morning. Attempted to take part in qualifying, but didn't get very far, and this is why, as we look at highlights from race number 1, a big start line collision, and Mario Cordoni on his return to the championship, making it no farther than a few meters into the race before his weekend was over. We saw Rosso Corsa Racing getting right in amongst the action yesterday, getting ahead of Quentin Antonell in the Q1 Track Racing Porsche. Mertel Motorsport were 1, 2 and 3 in qualifying and held those positions in the early stages of the race before slipping back, not only because of an unfortunately timed safety car, but also because of handicaps as well. As we saw the SP Racing Porsche getting in amongst the Mertel Ferraris as well before a spin later on in the race that would ultimately lead them to retirement as well, seemingly with issues on that car. But it was EST1 Racing, the number 47 of Alex Ryman, that would take its maiden victory of the season, having only made 1 appearance prior to this weekend. And here are the championship standings going into this 2nd race of the weekend. Still Ivan Velasco and Jorge Cabezas that lead by 5 points to Evgeny Leonov. Lauren van der Velde and Xander Prisbilak also leading the AM standings, as well as sitting 3rd overall. And this will be race number 2 for the weekend for the GT Cup Open. Here's how they line up on the grid. It's Andrea Bellici, who qualified on pole position for Rosso Corsa Racing ahead of Fabio Babini on the front row of the grid. Then comes Ivan Velasco for Mertel Motorsport ahead of Quentin Antonell on the AM pole position for Q1 Track Racing. On the 3rd row of the grid, it's Gianluca Di Lorenzi in the GDL Porsche ahead of Evgeny Leonov, 2nd in the championship for Volcano Motorsport. H. Mello, their first weekend in the Cup car, having graduated from the GT4 ahead of yesterday's race winner, Alex Ryman. Eugenio Pisani in 9th ahead of Alexandre Pachez. That car is 2nd in the AM standing, starting in 10th. Then Laurent van der Velde, the AM class leader in the points, ahead of Stephen Licorice. Florentin Cesco and Stefano Zerbi line up on the 7th row of the grid. Then comes Laura van den Hengel in her GT racing debut weekend ahead of Stefano Bozzoni. Hendrik Jaska and Roberto Bozio line up on the 9th row of the grid in a pair of Porsches. Jan Faisal Karim taking the trophy class for the GT4 category ahead of Jose Garcia in the Lion Speed Porsche, new entry for this weekend. And Samuel Bozio lined up on the back of the grid. That was another of the cars involved in that start line collision we saw yesterday, and he lines up at the back.
Yeah, Andrea Bellici now has got to try and focus onwards and try and marshal a deficit, but it's going to be made all the more difficult with Fabio Babini, as we know his raw pace as well. They were swapping lap times left, right and centre through qualifying. And don't forget Ivan Velasco, who will have Jorge Gabezas jumping in the car as well during the driver change period. That will start in 21 minutes time after racing action gets underway. But in this small matter of this formation lap, it's all about getting the heat into the tyres, making sure that you do have the necessary grip levels in order to challenge heading through towards lap 1, and that can prove to be the difference maker as we get the race underway. Gianluca Di Lorenzi, another one to watch. Evgeny Leonov in the initial part of this championship has been an absolute stellar performer as well, has scored consistent points this season, came into this weekend 2nd in the championship. Unfortunately had that little slip around Portimao when he was on the cusp of a race win that could have had a total different complexion in the championship.
And Evgeny Leonov, one of a few drivers driving solo in this race, and with 51 degrees track temperature, I would not want to be in that car for 50 minutes driving at full pelt.
Like a sauna, wouldn't it?
Exactly, and apparently yesterday's safety car, because they're getting no air in the car behind the safety car and close to the cars in front, which are generating a lot of heat as well, I said they were absolutely cooking in those cars. Yeah,
absolutely, the heat coming off the back of them is why you see many a driver moving out of the way of the dirty air to try and avoid it, because it's not just heat inside the cockpit, it's also the tyres as well. Every peripheral can be affected, as we see the car belonging to that of Eugenio Pisani and Stefano Zanini. Pisani behind the wheel here in 9th place, and in terms of the Pro-Am contingent, 6th place in that order. Stephen Licorice, the only other car behind him. We've got 2 cars in the trophy class as well. Jan Faisal Karim in 19th overall. He is, of course, driving the street art Aston Martin, with Jose Garcia joining him in 20th place as well. Samuel Bozio in 21st, as we can now see the cars now getting set to go racing again, as we now see, of course, that of Fernando Navarrete and Stefano Bozzoni's car. Obviously, Navarrete will be joining for the 2nd stint after taking the initial stint yesterday, and of course sticking the car on pole position as well when we went qualifying for the initial race in the GT Cup Open Championship. Different set of affairs though. Stefano behind the wheel as he looks to try and raise himself up the order, needs to try and get past Laura van der Hengel and Stefano Zerbi, who lie dead ahead of him.
Yep, formation flying now as we get ready for race number 2 in round 3 of the GT Cup Europe in 2023, coming from Circuit Paul Ricard. Andrea Bellici and Fabio Babini on the front row of the grid. It's going to be a fascinating contest as the Motel Motorsport crew watches on their car, lining up in 3rd place with Ivan Velasco. How is this going to emerge into the first corner as the cars make their way out of Virage du Port now and head towards the starting lights? We're about to get underway for race 2. It's lights out in Le Castellet, and a great start made by the Ampol sitter, kind of trying to get up around the outside, but it is Rosso Corsa Racing that leads in the early stages, heading towards the first corner, using that Ferrari power to lead into the first corner, and Ivan Velasco through into 2nd place as well.
Yeah, absolutely, a chaotic start, 4 wide, heading in towards turn 1 as well. Quentin Antonell now set in behind. He got the Volcano car belonging to that of Evgeny Leonov, still in 6th place as he looks to try and prosaically rise through the order. His join though, he has company as we now look and see Pisani trying to gain from 9th place, has done brilliantly. Mello in the fight as well, but still Bellici still taking the lead and careering away as Evgeny Leonov tries a desperate move around the outside. inside, heading through turn 5, but is immediately be trumped though by the ST1 Porsche.
Yeah, Alex Ryman, yesterday's race winner, taking full advantage of that as well, and Gianluca Di Lorenzi with a brilliant launch as well to get up into 3rd place overall, and the AM class lead as well, as Pisani looks to make a move here on Leonov. He's all over the curbing and the blue runoff area on the inside of the Mistral straight though. Babini trying to get back up on the inside onto the podium places as well, and Leonov there getting back up on the inside of Alex Ryman there for 7th place into the chicane on the Mistral.
Yeah, absolutely. Pisani, who are currently riding on board with now, can see Leonov. He sees that volcanic eruption now in place as he now sees turn 10 dead ahead, and Evgeny Leonov can surely not stop the prosaic run here from Pisani, but late on the brakes from Evgeny Leonov defends the position against that of Pisani. 7th place being held by the Volcano car. Certainly no changes in that order, as now we see Beliki still now clear up at the sharp end with Velasco close in behind.
Leonov was not going to yield that spot, was he? Left him very little room on the apex of Scene Corner. All's fair in love and war, and this is most definitely war, as Beliki leads out towards the final corner for the first time. Velasco into 2nd place by 6/7 of a second. Babini up into 3rd place now, as he's gone back past Gianluca Di Lorenzi, who still leads the AM category, but Babini back up into 3rd overall, and now only half a second behind Velasco for 2nd place. It's Ferrari leading Porsche.
Yeah, it certainly is. Velasco trying to get close as he can to Beliki, and he was slightly better, I would argue, heading through turn 2 as well, as they now head down now towards the next chicane, heading through Le Hotel, out of the Valerie S's, and certainly we can now see that at this point Leonov has done enough to keep Pisani at bay. Just ahead of Leonov is Mello, of course currently set in 6th place and has done so brilliantly to try and marshal off any of the attacks that are coming through. That, of course, being Cassio Homem de Mello, Brazilian stock car junior back in 2007 and 2009, since racing in the Copa Vicar in 2008 and 2009, driving Chevys back in 2010, and then Imperio Endurance in Brazil in GT4 class back in 2020, taking a win and becoming its champion in 2021. So he's no stranger to competitive racing, and that's exactly what we have here. And just look at Velasco, who's crawling over the back of Belici's car and might yet get a better run on the outset of the Mistral chicane.
Could well be Beliki, the gold-rated driver, the 46-year-old who has raced in, well, pretty much everything you can think of in terms of prototype and GT racing. And looking for the inside here into Scene Corner was Velasco in that number 80 Mertel Motorsport Ferrari. The car that is leading the standings going into this weekend. Back-to-back victories in Portimao it was for them. Leonov returned the serve at the Spa Enduro as well. Double points on offer there. And look at this, Babini getting up the inside now for 2nd place in the ZRS Porsche. At the inside into turn 12, and it looks like he's finished off that move, George. Yeah,
taking the place that he lost off the start-finish line, and certainly now Babini will look to try and rise himself through and tackle that of Andrea Bellici. Unfortunately for Velasco now losing out, as he looked like he was going to be pressurising Bellici for that 1st place. It has since turned around on him now, and he's dropping down the order to 3rd place now instead of Babini, who now moves on up. There's Fernando Navarrete, was watching on in the Mertel Motorsport camp. They'll be cheering on their man as well as they make their way down through towards turn 1. Of course, now that being Stefano Bozzoni further down as they head through turns 1 and 2. Warnings going to the car 44, that of course belonging to Eugenio Pisani for track limits at turns 7 and 10. 67 also being warned for the same thing, and that's Gianluca Di Lorenzi.
Race leader getting very wide into turns 3 and 4 there, and that is just going to give Babini all the more impetus to try and close in that gap. It was 0.8 of a second at the start of the lap. It's an awful lot less than that now, but the Ferrari is about to pull away on this straight here. So we have 2 different types of Cup car that aren't normally designed to race with each other, but the GT Sport organisation making these 2 cars very competitive with each other. And what it means is that the Porsche, there we've got the 68 Samuel Bozio. His miserable weekend continues because he's got a left rear puncture as well and parked up on the side of the road.
The question is that going to lead to a safety car? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he's pitched alongside. We can't see quite what portion of the circuit that is alluded to, but he has crawled to the back of the field. We'll wait and see a very clear display of a puncture there on the rear left of that Porsche. As you now see Babini make his way through the latter sector, chasing after that of Belici. Van der Velde moving up to 9th place ahead of Evgeny Leonov, who loses a place at his expense. Incredible. And certainly Leonov, who is one of the favourites this season after a stellar showing earlier on in this championship, coming back again and delivering at Spa-Francorchamps. Babini now going hunting, though, for that lead here at this point now, and is going to challenge that of Belici, who is literally having this Porsche hover all over the rear of his Ferrari, and this is a great advert as to why the Porsche is so good in the corners. And
he was trying the same move. He tried a lap ago to get 2nd place, and this is what we were talking about. The performance balance here means the Ferrari is a monster on the straights, but the Porsche owns the stuff in between them, with the additional weight and the narrower front tyres for the Ferrari as well, whereas the Porsche is largely untampered with. And as they tick off another lap, 43 minutes remaining in this race, and still a while yet before we see the driver change happening as well. So this battle will continue for a little bit longer, I would suspect, and the top 3 pulling well clear. They're 2.7 seconds ahead of the AM leader, Gianluca Di Lorenzi. It's Belici from Babini from Velasco.
Yeah, they come through now the Hotel S section, or certainly out to the chicane still. Belici still holding on to the lead of the race. Fabio Babini still threatening and prosaically rising as they come through the first sector in towards sector 2 as well, crawling on through it. Mistral Straight comes up next as they venture through turn 7, and the Ferrari still marshalling that deficit, and it can now utilise this straight to its strengths, and there is the reason. That's why Leonov lost that place, and he looks like he might have a puncture as well.
Front right puncture. I wonder if those 2 punctures, with the other one being Samuel Bozio there, are related. They shouldn't have been too close together on track, I would have thought, but here's Leonov in the pits getting a replacement on that front right, and for the man 2nd in the championship, this is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, not good at all, and having to make those necessary changes, it means now he's going to have to really start to charge now here at this point during the race, as now the battle kicks off yet again. Crawling, they're absolutely flying through turn 10, as then they come through towards Bousset. Babini there in 2nd, who's trying to launch a charge on Belici for that 1st place. Velasco now watching all this unfold dead ahead of him, of course waiting for Jorge Cabezas to jump into the car later on as well. But just look at how that Porsche is hovering all over the rear of the Ferrari now, but still able to retain the lead of the race as Babini still haunts the back of that Ferrari.
And Babini trying to use the Porsche's advantage as his strength, because he's looking up in the corners, the technical section of the racetrack, rather than attacking on the straight and up the inside into the last corner here. Babini trying to make a move for the lead of the race. Wide goes Bellucci on the exit of the corner and puts his foot flat to the floor, and the Ferrari will just extend its advantage down the straight with all 670 brake horsepower from that V8 engine.
Absolutely stellar stuff indeed. Bellucci doing enough just to hold on. Quentin Antonell now moving up to 4th as well. Gianluca Di Lorenzi down to 5th as a result. 4/10 off Antonell in 4th place now, as Belici now moves his way through the 1st sector. Babini there in 2nd, 2/10 of a second the distance between the two, with Velasco in behind, 3/10 behind, allowing this battle to unfurl because he might yet pounce on any result that comes through. But again, the corners working for the Porsche in the 1st sector as they come through turns 4, 5 and 6, soon to be turn 7 as well. Belici under pressure, but will still soon have the Mistral Straight to utilise to defend the place against that of the Porsche in behind him as well. Babini, though, with a stellar drive as Alex Ryman sets the fastest lap of the race.
And Quentin Antonell, meanwhile, has retaken the AM lead in 4th place overall. There we can see that yellow Porsche in the background, but Babini here, I mean, he's looking for every way he can through in the corners, but you see on that straight, the Ferrari just absolutely pulls clear, and there's nothing Babini can do about it.
No, not at all. As more this time goes on as well, it will favour Babini, because it will be a difference maker when it comes to tyre wear, and naturally it will favour Babini should he be able to be more proactive in the corners, heading through turns 10 yet again, and once again entering sector 3. Mello now moves up now. Gianluca Di Lorenzi dropping down the field at this point. Has he got an issue because he's not in the pits, and certainly at this point losing place after place. Laurent Van der Velde going past.
Babini going for the lead into Bousset. Sorry to cut over you there, Josh, but Fabio Babini into the lead. We said he was waiting for an opportunity to use that Porsche strength, and he picked the perfect moment.
Yeah, cracking move there from Babini, unlocked it. We said the sector sector 3 was the time to watch, but certainly Gianluca Di Lorenzi, I think, having a transponder issue. He is now in 5th place and still remains there as well. But certainly Fabio Babini now up into first place, sorry, with Beliki now down to 2nd place.
Only 3/4 of a second separating these top 3. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Only 10 minutes into the race as well, but Babini starting to pull clear. I almost wonder if now that he's in clean air, having just done the fastest lap of the race as well, a 2:08.588, if he'll start to pull clear of these 2 Ferraris behind him.
Yeah, well, we'll soon find out. Certainly Babini now starting to pull away already, 9/10 the gap, and a fastest lap as well to boot at 2:08.588, and that's a purple 3rd sector as well on that previous run. Grant Yuma 54.514, which then led to him obtaining that 2:08.588 ahead of that of Beliki, who is now nursing a 2:09, and he's just gone purple in the 1st sector, Babini, as well. So now that he's got the clean air, he can now pursue greater results. 34.638 and a 35.104 for Bellici. So certainly he is making a charge. We've got to move further down. This, of course, being the Ferrari to Porsche yet again. And that looks like the Romanian car. I think the contingent belonging to that of Florentin Cescu, I think, further down. And Alexandre Boschez making the move up there, retaining 10th place as a result as well. And he'll be subbing in for Michael Boschez as well, as part of the Boschez Brothers partnership as well.
Yeah, the car that is 2nd in the AM Championship going into this weekend, now moving their way into the top 10. The number 69 Kessel Ferrari. We've got 2 very big Ferrari Challenge entities in the form of Kessel and Mertel running the most of the Ferraris in this championship this season. The Ferrari, a new addition to the championship for this season. First time racing in this championship alongside the Porsches, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful addition to this series.
Certainly has been, and has offered plenty, and now we've since welcomed Rosso Corsa Racing to the championship too, where we have seen Andrea Bellici, who's obviously taken the initial stint, now in 2nd place due to Babini's overtake there. He'll be swapping in as well for Lorenzo Innocenti, who's in only his 2nd year, shall we say, 2 years experience of racing, and has raced in the Ferrari Challenge style open events now since coming here to the GT Cup Open into his first official championship, and now battling alongside that of his friend and driver coach Andrea Bellici, who has a stellar record as a racing driver.
1.4 seconds is what Fabio Babini pulled on Andrea Bellici in just a single lap of clean air there. The gap up to 2.3 seconds already. Babini is flying.
He is, absolutely, at 2:07.965, and a purple 1st sector on that previous lap is certainly what has given him that stellar showing and advancing his charge. 2.3 seconds ahead of Andrea Bellici in 2nd. Ivan Velasco in behind as well, still charging on Bellici. He hasn't given up the fight whatsoever. The EST1 also, Alex Ryman, remember, he was the fastest man on track earlier. He's charging down on Eugenio Pisani now as we see them come together within 0.5 of a second. Ryman is clear to pursue as they head down through towards the Mistral Straight, getting over the curbs, utilising every ounce of circuit as he looks to draw a charge after winning yesterday's race.
I mean, he was in danger of rolling the car at one point there. It was so high up off the ground, but yesterday's race winner, Alex Ryman, in 8th place for the EST1 racing crew, trying to make his way past the 44 car of Eugenio Pisani at the moment. It's the newer 992 Porsche against the older one. We do have a mix of the 991.2 and the newer 992 Cup cars, as well as the current generation of Ferrari 488 Challenge Evos, which soon to be replaced by the 296 actually as well. But I dare say these the 488s can still find a home in the GTOpen over the next few years.
Definitely, and we can only wait and see. Watch his space, they say. Stephen Licorice now going ahead of Bozzoni as well. He'll be coming out to the car for Fernando Navarrete as well later on when we have the driver change window open. Stephen Licorice jumping into the championship as well this time around. Great to have him here too as they look to drive on forwards here in this series.
Gianluca Di Lorenzi picking up a 5-second time penalty for track limits. That's the car that's 5th overall, 2nd in the AM category as well, and not for the first time this weekend. Gianluca Di Lorenzi coming a cropper as a result of track limits.
Yeah, lost out earlier on to Quentin Antonell as well when we saw the battles unfurling for 4th place, and is now since being pursued by Melo in 6th, who we allude to is Brazilian stock car history as well. As we see the Mertel car, number 19, that of being Stefano Bozzoni. We spoke about Stephen Licorice as well, who's also got quite an extensive record when it comes to racing. Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain with 6 wins and 17 podiums, becoming its champion back in 2014. GT4 European Series with a win in that series, a podium in the Gulf 12 Hours in succession. He was P2 in the championship as well in 2016. Here's a moment though, a replay here, Chris.
Yeah, Alex Ryman, getting it wrong and going for a spin. Yesterday's race winner trying to get past Pisani there and going for a spin out of Bousset. It hasn't cost him anything in terms of position though, because he's still in 8th place.
Yeah, he'll try and recover as well, but nevertheless it does mean that any chances of a win might have been put into the distance. Already taken a race win this season. However, now we've got cars getting closer and closer together as Melo has actually looked to gain here on Gianluca Di Lorenzi for that 5th place. We can now see them hightailing out of the section, heading through the Mistral Straight. They have, of course, got Quentin Antonell, followed them by Gianluca Di Lorenzi. Melo in behind him as well as they circulate through turn 10.
Melo's car looks like he's got a big dent in the front of it, as if he's rear-ended somebody somewhere along the line. I wonder if it was Gianluca Di Lorenzi, because he's practically pushing him through Bousset corner and trying to find a way through into 5th place, looking up the inside there, and most definitely looking up the inside and taking the position as well. So Melo up into 5th place, and that is the car, well, the entry. There was a GT4 Porsche at the start of the year. Now in their 2nd race of the season, they've upgraded it to the full-on Cup car. Yeah,
Cassio Homem de Melo making that crucial overtake there on Di Lorenzi, and now makes his way down the straight now into 5th place, and will chase after Quentin Antonell. The gap now 1.9 seconds between the two, equilateral between that of Antonell Velasco and that of Melo as well. Di Lorenzi now reduced to 6th place with Eugenio Pisani trying to breathe down his neck. So Alex Ryman recovering reasonably well, still 8th place out on track. Eugenio Pisani just up the road from him as well, 1.1 seconds separating the two, as we now see the cars now beckon their way in towards the La Hotel section. Fast pace over the curbs, as well as we now see Velasco there being chased by Antonell. The gap between Velasco 2.2 to that of Bellici, but look at Babini again checking out still. 4.5 seconds now between the leader. It has steadied up slightly, Babini not putting in the laps like he was earlier on.
Yeah, her last time round was still another second faster, but yeah, the gap not quite extending as quick as you might expect. 4.5 seconds is Babini's advantage now over Andrea Bellici in 2nd place. Velasco still there in 4th, and Quentin Antonell taking some chunks out of Velasco as well, the AM class leader, as this battle for 5th place continues. Gianluca Di Lorenzi fighting for 2nd place in the AM category with Melo here, and it's looked like it's not finished yet.
No, not at all. I think there's definitely more to come. Gianluca Di Lorenzi just waiting in the wings. 4 tenths.
No, never mind, he's just been given another time penalty for track limits as well, this time 10 seconds, as we had a very brief yellow flag out at turn 15, but all good now.
Might explain actually how he's managed to retain on the rear, I think. Of course, got very close around 410, still holds that gap as well, heading through sector 3. Maybe just trying a little bit too hard to hit those apexes. Sometimes you can overcook it, and maybe flirting with the other side of those white lines, as we now see Babini making his way through in the lead of this race. Bellici now 4.2 still behind. He's managed to retain that, but lapping the street art further back. That's Jayan Faisal Karim, should I say, who's down in 20th place. So now Fabio Babini launching himself higher and higher up the echelons there. Now he's lapping cars, that of course being a trophy car in the classification. Jayan Faisal Karim, the unfortunate receiver.
Yes, Jayan being the son of Jahid, who races street art in the GTOpen, and this is Jayan's first season in the championship, but the same driver coach that they used last season in this championship as well, being Julian Darras, who will take over the car in the second half of the race. But Faisal Karim there, second of the 2 trophy cars at the moment. That class currently being led by the Lion Speed entry, number 99, the Porsche Cayman of Jose Garcia.
Yeah, Julian Darras, incidentally, who will be stepping into the Street Art, a French F4 race winner back in 2015. Since then, European GT4, 2017, 18, 19, and also took part in the Pro-Am in GT Cup back in 2022, of course, achieving P1 in the trophy classification as well on that occasion. As we now see the cars make their way through the midsection of this Mistral straight, heading through the chicane. And now powering outwards yet again, Quentin Antonell, still leading the AM contingent, having a very, very steady race right now. Mello not far behind, 2.1 seconds though now the gap. Antonell has done enough to certainly bridge the gap, certainly between him and Ivan Velasco, and at the same time, gapping at a reasonable level to that of Mello. And if you look at the last laps as well, a 2:09.320 for Antonell, and it is 0.7 of a second faster than Cassio Homen Mello, who sits in 5th place.
5.9 seconds now is the leader's advantage, with the driver change window now on, as the Aston Martin gets rounded up a little bit more by the other cars. Gianluca Di Lorenzi, the latest to go through. And I thought for a second there that the number 80, Ivan Velasco, was going to be coming into the pits. It looked like he was pit lane bound, but going on for another lap. But the first car in being the line speed Porsche. Carlos Scholl making his way into the car now for Jose Garcia. And line speed, very successful this weekend in the International GTOpen, this weekend being on the podium yesterday. And this line speed GT4 car, a new entry for this weekend.
Yeah, back in 1999, Jose Garcia, French GT Championship with 3 wins, 4 podiums, 2 poles. Since then, raced in the Porsche Carrera Cup in France, 2003. That was 2015, brought him the NASA Eastern States Championships. That's where he took part as well. A very sporadic racing history, but back again this time, though, in the International GT, well, certainly under the GT Sport classification in the GT Cup Open, as we now see Xander Prisbalak get set to jump in the car himself as well as part of Q1 track racing. Of course, a stellar overtaker. We saw it yesterday. He put on a great exhibition, and now he steps in the car for the final 27 minutes.
Yes, Xander Prisbalak, youngest driver in the field, or certainly one of. I think Alex Ryman might well have taken that honour away from him. Now I'd have to double check, but yes, fresh from karting. Really his only car racing experience being some outings in the Belgium Endurance Championship last year. Xander Prisbalak, the 52, with Laurent van der Velde, currently leading the AM standings in the championship, but slightly further down the order in this particular race. Andrea Bellicci here in 2nd place, number 11 coming in for a stop as well. That's Fabio Fabiani getting in the car as Stefano Zerbi hands over.
And of course, there is Bellicci still holding on to his position. Babini in 1st, has done a great job, 6.8 seconds now the gap, so he's still finding time after time. A 2:08.751 on his last lap against a 2:10.954 set by Bellicci on the previous run, which is an almighty gap in between the two. Car 70 also in the pits, and that is, of course, Roberto Bosio, who's just serving his change window period. And he's going to be looking to try and marshal in an extensive gap. Of course, formerly Superbikes and MotoGP, and since racing in Porsche Carrera Cup back in 2016 and 2021. Porsche and Ferrari monoband trophies as well since 2009, as Jorge Cabezas now jumps in place of Ivan Velasco. And this is the first pit stop we have seen, certainly at the front end.
Yeah, the 81 crew just came in as well. Luca Ludwig's just taken over that car from Stephen Licorice, so it's getting busy down at the Mertel Motorsport camp, with Ivan Velasco handing over the car to Jorge Cabezas now. I dare say that car will go on a bit of a charge now, but we'll see where they emerge. Indeed, where Babini and Bellici's teammates come out as well. This is the Bochez brothers swapping in. Mikhail getting in the car in place of Alexander.
Yeah, both competing in Ferrari Challenge and stepping into the GT Cup Open Championship as well. Great to have them here. Got to talk to them briefly too. They're very excited about the weekend. Enjoy this championship. Very much enjoying being part of this weekend now, as we see again more activity coming in. Here comes car number 14, belonging to Maurizio Fondi, who's about to step into the car himself, ahead of Laura van der Hengel, who's put in a pretty decent stint. Struggled yesterday as well with some spins, but since recovering, and is now going to look to put in a stellar display. She coming off the back of some karting championships in 2009 and 2021, competing in Mazda MX-5 Cups in Netherlands in 2022, and now swaps in for Maurizio Fondi, a Coppa Italia Turismo champion in 2015, and GT4 in Italy, competing in the Italian GT Sprint in 2021, and now he steps up here in the GTOpen.
No sign of any movement yet from our top two. I imagine they'll be stretching this out as much as possible. Only 3 minutes left on the clock for the driver change, so I imagine this will be the last lap for that top 8 that are yet to stop. Bellici being one of them before he hands over to Lorenzo Innocenti. That number 17 Rosso Corsa Ferrari, that is a new entry for this weekend. They've come out of the blocks pretty strong. Great performance yesterday, backed up by pole position today, currently running in second in this race, as well as Gianluca Di Lorenzi about to hand over the car to Stefano Borghi. And the 57, Nico van Dierendonck, now taking over from Quentin Antonell.
Yeah, Van Dierendonck will come in now. Position 4 currently in the pit lane. But yeah,
that was the AM lead that he was in when he came in.
Yeah, and now obviously Mello now takes that advantage at this point. And the driver change window will come to an end in 2 minutes' time. So there is one more lap in this potentially for some of the drivers, as we see a little bit of a scrap heading in towards this midway point. Car number 11, of course, belonging to Fabio Fabiani, and has been met by Yori Alayaira as well out on track as they now hurtle through the first sector. Still here on this occasion, heading through turns 4, 5, 6, very soon 7 in towards the Mistral. They got a little bit of company further up as well, as they look to now prosaically rise, heading through this next after tighter line though for the EST1 Porsche. So they send it down through towards the chicane in the middle of this long straight. And it's just a case now of managing the race, managing the temperatures, managing the tyres now. As you can see, Fabiani now at the expense of Yori Alayaira, looking to the left-hand side of him as he goes slightly defensive. And we see now the car exiting the pit lane here as it gets back onto the track. That's the EST, that's, in fact, sorry, the Volcano car belonging to Evgeny Leonov.
Yeah, the sidecar's already been in the pits once today to replace a front right tyre. The puncture we saw earlier, Evgeny Leonov now back in to complete his mandatory stop. And it's been, well, it's going to be a long old afternoon for Evgeny Leonov. The championship taking a big hit today as Babini is in. Going to hand over the car to Davide Scanicchio.
Yeah, Davide Scanicchio stepping into the car ahead of that of Fabio Babini, who's putting in a stellar display on this occasion. So used to seeing it, especially after that you know, hell for leather sprint that sent him clear. Lorenzo Innocenti as well stepping in as well for Bellici. So the top runners now coming in, making their necessary changes. And what will be interesting is to see where the likes of Stefano Zanini come out in all this. Nicholas van Dierendonck as well, because of course they got quite a gap to find. The way it's marked out right now, it looks like Scanicchio should still retain the lead.
Well, Babini's lead 9.6 seconds when they came into the pits. Innocenti there should will be handicap free as well, as indeed I believe will be the 78 that was leading the race as well. Driver change is finished. So we've got two Ferraris going side by side here. This is Bochez trying to get around the outside of the 19, or indeed it's Navarrete making his way past Mikhail Bochez there and into 11th place. Next car on the road for him is some 10 seconds ahead. It's his teammate, Luca Ludwig.
Yeah, Navarrete, of course, who was on pole in yesterday's outing as the cars they make their way out onto the circuit. That's Lorenzo Innocenti, incidentally, as well. Now, the question is, did he come out ahead of Davide Scanicchio? I don't think so. Innocenti holding on to second place, and I think he'll have a little bit of a gap to find. It's 9.6 seconds between the two, so he'll have to go to work here at this point. Further back, we've got a little scrap between Zazzini and Van Dierendonck as they make their way through this next chicane section, heading through now now towards turns 5, 6, and soon 7, and still the 44 holding on for dear life right now. That, of course, being Zanini in third place. Van Dierendonck haunting the rear end as well. Came off the back of a very, very decent performance yesterday too, as now Van Dierendonck, who is a veteran of this particular championship, raced in it last year. There is Scanaccio coming through the Mistral chicane as well.
Yep, he leads 12.8 seconds ahead of Lorenzo Innocenti, and this battle for third place. So the 44 SP Racing Porsche has leapt up the order in that pit stop phase, but is coming under big threat from Nico Van Dierendonck, the car that Quentin Antonell just handed over to him. And, well, that's not going to be helping him close down that gap as he gets all over the curb there. And Zanini just able to stretch clear a little bit as a result of that error from Van Dierendonck, but still leads the AM classification ahead of Gustavo Condi by 7.8 seconds at this time.
Yeah, definitely at this stage now. Scanaccio still with the lead, 12.1. Let's see how far he can marshal it. Obviously a stellar opening display already, as we see Stefano Zanini 2 seconds off that of Innocenti in second place. Van Dierendonck just in behind. A second separation now as you see it coming together as well. Further down, Xander Prisbalac and Jorge Cabezas in the midst of this. A little bit of traffic as well with the trophy car belonging to that of Julian Darris as they hunt up the inside, get their way through. But obviously Cabezas now is going to be very wary of Prisbalac because he has got a lot of pace, and we know about the Porsche strengths in the corners, especially in Sector 3.
Yeah, Cabezas getting very close with Xander Prisbalac, and Prisbalac down the inside. Almost had a little touch there, or did he just lose the back end? They got very, very close indeed through turn 12, and Xander Prisbalac has to wait for another opportunity to make his way through on that 81 car.
Yeah, it certainly does, heading down now into turn 15. The trophy car belonging to Julian Darris, currently second in that trophy battle. Carlos Scholl currently holds on to that right now in P19. There's Xander Prisbalac now heading down through towards turn 1. Yet again, the gap now extending slightly between him and that of the car in front. In fact, it's not Cabezas in front of him, it's Luca Ludwig, who's in fact owning that spot in P9. Cabezas currently P5 in the Pro-Am class. As there we see the Volcano car. Oh, bit of a mix-up here, 3 wide and a double overtake as well for the Volcano. And a spin as well for car number 11, that being Fabio Fabiani, who drops down the order.
Yes, but Leonov, I was about to say Leonov got 2 in 1, but it looks like that could well be the, actually, I think it's the Q1 Track Racing Porsche that has just been for a 360 on the way into the Mistral. Indeed it was, it's the orange car, and I find the number for it, but it's got it's picked up some kind of detritus there, but it is in fact the 55 Gustavo Condi that was in 5th place. No doubt Stefano Borghi will have gone through as a result of that spin, but certainly not an ideal moment for Gustavo Condi. He's dropped down to 8th place as a result of that. Here it is again. I just dropped it.
Yeah, well, that, in fact, has obviously played a vital role in the AM battle. He's now down to 3rd place in the AM contingent as a result. And obviously at this stage now, with that piece of material stuck to the car, less than ideal, as we now see the cars now fight their way through. This, of course, being Van Dierendonck and Zanini coming together now in the final sector, as they now hurtle through this next section. Of course, final corner now coming up next, and Zanini, who's been under threat now for quite some time, the AM driver, Nicolas Van Dierendonck, as part of the AM class, leading that class as well. May fancy an overtake to take 3rd overall here in this race as well. Can't quite find the straight line speed down through towards turn 1, but nevertheless still showing that he is relentless in the corners, taking turn 1 now. Still, though, it's Zanini holding on to 3rd place. Nicolas Van Dierendonck now needs to try and gain a measure of him as they exit over the curve still, and now they'll presently rise still with just over 15 minutes to go.
I don't want to deliver more bad news to Evgeny Leonov, but his pit stop is now under investigation as well. Down in 16th place. I mean, this day couldn't be getting much worse for him, could it?
Not only that.
So this battle for the last spot on the overall podium.
His team manager's been called as well. So
yeah, that'll be for that investigation. So, Stefano Zanini here trying to hang on to the last spot on the overall podium. He's Pro-Am runner going up against the AM Q1 Track Racing Porsche of Nico Van Dierendonck. And very little separating them at the moment as they head towards the timing lane. Oh, well, that's going to make things interesting, and that must be why we saw this car leap up the order. Less handicap being served and a 5-second time penalty being given as a result of that.
Yeah, and automatically this means that Van Dierendonck will take the overall P3 should it remain like this at the very tail end of this race. 14 minutes and 50 to go. There is Innocenti, who is going to work here on the gap between him and Scanaccio. It's now down to 8.2 seconds. More than enough time, I think, Chris. I'm looking at this delta now, and take a look at this. Last lap here from Scanaccio, 2 minutes 14.156. You've got 2:11.520 from Innocenti. A couple of seconds taken away already from that, as we see the battle come together now between Zanini and Van Dierendonck again.
Yes, lead gap was some 12 seconds when he came out of the pits. It's now 8.2. So that lead gap's definitely coming down, and 14 minutes left on the clock. It's still very much on the cards here for Rosso Corsa to take a win in their debut weekend in the GT Cup. And this battle for third place still raging on. Nico Van Dierendonck wants to do it on track, not just on the timing screen, and I think he might want to put any daylight between him and any potential threats behind, such as Alex Ryman and Jorge Cabezas. And the longer he sits in behind Zanini, the more chance he's got of being passed by them and losing out an overall podium as well.
Yeah, 1.3 seconds Cabezas behind Ryman at this point. Ryman, though, trying to gain 7.1 to find on Van Dierendonck, but he's more concerned about Zanini in front of him here. Obviously, penalties aside, he would much rather get the move done on circuit. And Van Dierendonck, who might not necessarily be aware that the investigation has led to a penalty of sorts here against Zanini, will still be more than focused on perhaps achieving a goal of getting a podium here overall. Scanaccio now losing yet more time, 7.8 seconds now from Innocenti, and again dropping that delta time and time again. 2:13.630 from Scanaccio, and then Innocenti with a 2:11.893. We're talking nearly 2 seconds difference between the pair. 1.8 if you want to be certainly up to the nines on it, but nevertheless Innocenti dropping that delta by nigh on near 2 seconds a lap.
Gap down 7.8 now, so we'll keep an eye on it, because the lead gap is definitely coming down at a very fast rate of knots, and less than 13 minutes remaining in the race, as we've got some traffic being contended with here for Lorenzo Innocenti on his charge to reclaim the lead of the race. It's playing out almost very similarly to the GTOpen race we saw earlier, where we saw a change of lead in the first stint, the second driver's got in, and now one's chasing after the other again.
It is, and this is the wonder of, well, the wonders certainly when it comes to driver changes. There you see over the last 2 laps, 2.6 seconds in lap 15, and then another stellar showing from Innocenti to drop 1.7 seconds off Davide Scanaccio, and there he is right now. And what doesn't help is the traffic that he's trying to contend with as well, heading through turn 15, and marshals his way through as well, past the GTL racing car that now sits behind him here. We've got another fight as well brewing, as it has been now for a while. Van Dierendonck still threatening Zanini here for that third place. Can't quite find a way through at turn 15, but will have the long straight this time, and it looks like he might just be close enough as well in order to launch a charge into turn 1, just losing that little bit of ground though on the road, heading down through towards that first corner here on this new lap. And once again, Innocenti down to 7 seconds. He's dropped yet another half second off the time here, Chris.
Gap down to 7 seconds. It almost looks like Zanini's got some really great straight line performance here, because even though Van Dierendonck's right on his back bumper coming out of certain corners, Zanini just seems to pull away on these straights. But then we saw how Innocenti is reeling in. Race leader Davide Scanaccio, we'll keep an eye on it. Still 11 minutes remaining in this race, as meanwhile Luca Ludwig's lighting up our timing screen, setting purple sectors and personal best. He's in 8th place at the moment and trying to get back up the order. He's right behind Stefano Borghi at the moment in the 67 GTR Racing Porsche. And look at this, the 2 SP cars about to get line astern here. They could this could come into play. A bit of team orders, perhaps, as the 11 is about to get lapped.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to bring certainly Zanini and Van Dierendonck closer together. Of course, if you're Zanini right now, you want to try and jump it as soon as possible. The gap now down to 5.6 as Innocenti continues to chop at the delta that is between him and Davide Scanaccio. And once again, as well as the lap not being necessarily as much of a blow as it was to Scanaccio, half a second is still very, very large in the context of this fight. 5.6 seconds, and it looks like this lap is going to be a major one here from Innocenti. Again, the battle rages on here as the two cars look to fight their way through. Van Dierendonck and Zanini getting past the back markers here, but still, at this point, Van Dierendonck not yet content with his position on circuit as Zanini still comes under threat.
Great fight here for the last spot on the podium, but of course remember Stefano Zanini has that 5-second time penalty for serving less handicap than he was supposed to. Another look up the inside here from Van Dierendonck into the final corner, trying to pressure them into a mistake. Two Q1 track racing Porsches going side by side into turn 12 there. That's Prisbillac getting past Condi for 9th place.
Navarrete got the pair of them too, moved up into 9th as well.
Yes, I will be for 10th.
Yeah, moving up from 11th up to 9th, so a fantastic move from Fernando Navarrete to certainly send his car up the field for Mertel Motorsport. Now EST1 as well in the mix of all this. There's the confirmation, Prisbillac as well moving on up as we now see the gap between Scanaccio and Innocenti. It's going to come down yet again as we get an update. It's 4.8 seconds now. It's come down still, and looking at it, 2/10 of that last occasion, but it's enough to bring himself closer and closer in the fight for the lead of this race. We're going to be in for a last gasp heroic here from Innocenti, and I'm sure his driver coach is going to be watching on and spurring him on. Of course, at this point, Andrea Bellici, who took the first stint after sticking it on pole earlier on this morning, now watching his driver, certainly his pupil, and not to mention his friend, go on to try and take this race win.
4.8 seconds now, 8 minutes left on the clock. It's getting closer and closer, isn't it, for the lead of the race. Stefano Zanini and Nico Van Dierendonck still some 6 seconds back from the second place car of Lorenzo Innocenti. And that friendship there you mentioned, they have a real strong bond, don't they, in that camp, and if they could win this race together, then I'd be very interested to see how they celebrate that win.
Well, especially being it Rosso Corsa's first entry into the GTOpen as well this weekend. It's going to mean all the more for them to take a race win at this portion as well, after coming second in yesterday's race, just behind that of Alex Ryman. And on this occasion, they're the ones chasing after Davide Scanaccio and looking to try and enlarge their prospects of perhaps taking an overall race win. The gap again still looking to come down, and I can tell you this, that Innocenti once again fastest in the first sector against that of Scanaccio, and then of course further on finding an almighty near enough 5/10 in the second sector against Scanaccio as well, and another 4/10 in the third sector. This could be like another 1.2, 1.4 second gap, or 1.4 second gain on the car ahead of him here, and it certainly is as well on that previous lap. With 7 minutes to go, Innocenti really is going to town on the man in P1.
Alex Ryman and Jorge Cabezas have arrived on the scene in this battle for third place. Alex Ryman immediately trying to make a move here on the AM class leader. Cabezas going to try and take the pair of them into turn 3, but both of them go through past Nico Van Dierendonck, who still has the AM class lead, but he's fallen from 4th into 6th.
Yeah, the EST1 now, Alex Ryman, of course, CIK, FIA European ICC Championship in karting back in 2002. We haven't seen much of him in cars, but now here in the GTOpen, he is prosaically rising up the order as he did so yesterday, and after the difficulties earlier on in this race, recovering strongly, and now currently in 4th, within a second as well of Stefano Zanini as well in 3rd. So now we're seeing them now make their way through, and now hurtle through towards this next right as we now see Scanaccio still up at the sharp end. There's Van Dierendonck 4/10 off that of Jorge Cabezas as the changes now happen in the midfield, certainly in the mid-top 10s, as once again we see them. Alex Ryman now looking all over the back of Zanini's car, heading through to 10 they go. There's Cabezas as well in behind, as well as Luca Ludwig, who's managed to get past as well Van Dierendonk for that 6th place, as now Alex Ryman chucks it up the inside, heading through now. The Brusher coming through this next right, and the Bousset has managed to pull it off as well. The Tiger Line favouring that of Alex Ryman. 3rd place now at this point now, with 5 minutes and 30 still to go.
I got it all crossed up on the way in as well. Great bit of car control from Alex Ryman, yesterday's race winner. And now look at this, Zanini here getting pushed out wide by Cabezas on the exit of 12, and Cabezas goes through as well into 4th place. He can still wind up on the podium as well if he can get past Alex Ryman in the final 5 minutes of this race.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Still, the battles still exist right across the track, even the one for the lead as well. 2.5 seconds now between the top two, 5 minutes to go. Essentially, we've got a situation where there is 3 laps remaining here in this race. Ryman now in 3rd. We've got Cabezas on a slow car. That's Luca Ludwig.
Yeah, slow moving Luca Ludwig there by the looks of it. Here's a replay of Ryman's move in the meanwhile. Did catch a big snap of oversteer as he went for the maneuver on the inside of the Bousset. But yeah, looks like dramas for Luca Ludwig though on that front straight. He was in 6th place, but moving very slowly indeed.
Yeah, unfortunately for Luca Ludwig, it looks like his race might have come to a sorry end here at this point, unless it's just an issue that he can temporarily fix or something. We're not quite sure. 7th place, and now it's come to a stop. The marshals have already attended to it. Yellow flag. And yes, it does seem evident indeed for Luca Ludwig, and he drops down the field. He has been leapfrogged by Fernando Navarrete, Stefano Borghi, Xander Prisbalak as well at this point. And also a last warning for track limits going to car number 78 as well. That's Davide Scanaccio.
Yeah, so he's got to be really careful in these final few laps now not to pick up a clumsy penalty for track limits. If he does it one more time, he'll end up with that penalty. And oh, look at this, the 2 trophy cars going wheel to wheel here, but the Cayman going for a spin. A very nice 360, but not ideal in terms of that battle. Julian Darris now leads that by 6 seconds after that incident for the Cayman. But yes, we're coming down to the final 3.5 minutes here. Lorenzo Innocenti within 2 seconds now of Davide Scanicchio, who has got to be millimetre perfect in these last few corners to avoid a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely, and heartbreak it would be as well if he would lose the win, down to a sheer penalty decision as he now makes his way through. Remember, it didn't take long for Innocenti to break into 2 seconds. There he is now, and he can get full view of Scanaccio's car as he makes his way down through towards turn 1. The ZRS Motorsport car is going to come cascading downwards. Another gap slashed here, half a second taken off, as well as a little bit of debris gets picked up off the track as now in comes Innocenti in towards turn 1. He's going to look to try and utilize every ounce of pace in this Ferrari down the long straight in order to try and get close to the Porsche.
There's another 1.1 seconds on that previous lap, so could well be right on the back of him at the end of this one. That's another one of the Porsches, the 78, no, the 76. Number 70, Roberto Bosio? Yes,
Roberto Bosio,
looks to be that way. Yeah, it was slightly different on the entry list there to what I had, but that's turn 15. So yellow flags out there. The second placed AM car in the championship's got a 5-second penalty as well. Here's why that number 70 car is stricken. It's the 19 Mertel Motorsport car that gets into the side of it and looks rather stricken there.
It's a bad day to be a Bosio here this afternoon. Yes. Samuel Bosio already out, and now Roberto Bosio facing difficulties of his own here around turn 15. And look at this, a flash of the lights as well from Lorenzo Innocenti. He's letting Davide Scanaccio know that he is right there and ready to challenge as then they make their way through turn 10 yet again. What a scene here in the GT Cup Open as we now venture into what can only be the final 2 laps of the race. This is going to be extraordinary as he now hugs a tighter line heading through. Perhaps Scanaccio got a little bit scared with that Ferrari coming up behind him. He chucks it down the inside. Innocenti leads here at Paul Paul Ricard, Rosso Corsa in their debut weekend have now seen themselves take the lead of the race in the GT Cup Open, and now with a mere minute and 15 to go, it's all on them to take it to the top step.
Absolutely fantastic stuff from Lorenzo Innocenti, been eating down that gap. We said he could well be on the back of him by the end of this lap. He's done better than that. He's already gone through and he leads with 1 minute left on the clock. I believe this will be the last lap as well now. But now what's Kenichio got here? Can he potentially reclaim that lead? The rate of knots that Innocenti was closing in on him would suggest not. But doesn't seem to be giving up the fight just yet, does Skinichio? As now look at this, two very different lines being used there into the first corner. A bit of overlap, and Skinichio having to back right out of it to avoid contact there. But here's a replay of the maneuver, nicely up the inside into Bousset. The tighter line working very nicely indeed for Innocenti.
Yeah, Bousset providing the drivers with many an opportunity, kept it pinned down the inside the tiger line from Lorenzo Innocenti, and it certainly did deliver for him as well. Celebrations in the Rosso Corsa camp. Andrea Bellici, you can see him there with a headset on. He'll be delighted for his friend and colleague here in this championship fight. As the timer ticks to 0, we're on the final lap here at Paul Ricard in race 2 of the GT Cup Open, and it is Lorenzo Innocenti who's now advancing his cause here. 1.4 seconds now, nearly 1.5, as he makes his way through the chicane at the midpoint way through that of the Mistral chicane, and a flick of the rear as well from Alex Ryman as Jorge Cabezas looks to challenge here, Chris.
Yeah, trying to get around the outside. He had his own moment down at the chicane there, and now the superior Ferrari straight line speed drawing him completely clear of Alex Ryman and onto the final spot on the podium on the last lap of the race as well. It's going to be 2 Ferraris on the rostrum in this race, and Alex Ryman, yesterday's race winner, just missing out there. Consolidation for the Porsche runners as Nico van Dierendonck looks set for the AM class victory in the 57 Q1 track racing Porsche. 5 seconds clear of Fernando Navarrete in the other Mertal Motorsport Porsche. But what a weekend it has been for Rosso Corsa Racing. The stats will say this car started on pole position and finished in first place, but that does not half tell the story of this race at all. Lorenzo Innocenti exits Virage Dupont now, drives towards the line and takes victory for Rosso Corsa Racing. The Ferrari 488 victorious once again in the GT Cup Europe. Skinichio consolidating second place there, and Jorge Cabezas on the last lap taking the last spot on the podium as well. Celebrations already underway for Rosso Corsa Racing, and Nico van Dierendonck and Quentin Antonell take the AM class win as well. He's just gone over the line in 6th place.
Stunning performance from Lorenzo Innocenti. He's going to be absolutely thrilled with that. Coming into your first weekend in the GT Cup Open Championship, going 2nd in race 1. He came back in race 2, has brought the car home in front with a victory to boot as well. And after 2 years of racing only, what an achievement for this man. And certainly we'll look to rise further. There's more to come from this pairing, I would think. Skinichio gave it his best, wasn't able to hold off the tirade. Obviously on the penultimate lap, had to forego the position, but Fabio Babini delivering a clinic in their opening stint. Jorge Cabezas on the final lap, tackling that of Alex Ryman, yesterday's victor, and once again adding yet another stat to their record as well. After achieving race wins at Portimao in race 1 and race 2, coming back again at Spa-Francorchamps to pick up 20 points. There again, back on the podium still, as they unrelentingly look to challenge for the title. And it's, I tell you what, it's their 4th podium this season as well, Chris.
It is indeed. He didn't even need to make that move, actually, because Alex Ryman had a 5-second time penalty for, I believe it was track limits. So didn't need to make that move in the end, but he made it anyway.
Yeah. And it was a crucial one, nevertheless. You'd like to do it on track regardless. I tell you what, there's no better feeling than getting the move done clear and proper. And this time, it fell to the realms of Jorge Cabezas. He made the move, made it stick, and a very passionate racer as well. And Lorenzo Innocenti, who I'm sure will enjoy this one. He's the victor. And take us through the results, Chris.
Yeah, the results are Lorenzo Innocenti and Andrea Bellici take victory for Rosso Corsa Racing. A fantastic debut weekend for that team. Scanicchio and Fabio Babini take second place for ZRS Motorsport. Ivan Velasco and Jorge Cabezas complete the podium for Mertel Motorsport, just ahead of Alex Ryman. Quentin Antonell and Nico van Dierendonck with the AM class victory for Q1 track racing, ahead of Fernando Navarrete and Stefano Bozzoni in the other Mertel Motorsport car. Stefano Zanini and Eugenio Pisani in 44, Xander Prisbilak and Laurent van der Velde in 52. Stefano Boggi and Gustavo Kondo completing the top 10.
Well, cars now coming into Parc Ferme, and we follow Lorenzo Innocenti as he makes his way in towards the Parc Ferme P1 spot as well. Rosso Corsa, as you can see on the rear wing, celebrating a first win in this championship and getting a well-deserved clap, getting well received here at Paul Ricard, here at Le Castellet, the south of France, where we've witnessed weather conditions that vastly past the supreme heat, and we have got certainly 50-degree track conditions. It has been 30 to 35, nearly 40 in some occasions as well. But just wait for this. This is going to be emotional. This is going to be outrageous. And certainly for Lorenzo Innocenti, in his first proper appearance in a race weekend, second race here as well.
Struggling to get the strap undone there to get Lorenzo out of the car. But yeah.
Bravissimo, bravissimo.
Look at what it means.
Great stuff. That's great.
Fantastic. This is what racing's all about, folks at home. Credit to Scanicchio as well. Fabio Babini coming over to console him as well, just to let him know, obviously, just to say, look at that picture of, as well, of the Rosso Corsa team. What a performance, and what a deserved victory as well. They were tipped as the favourites as well, Chris, stepping into the weekend as well. Many of the teams looking at their Mertel Motorsport, I think, also thought that they were going to be some serious rivalries there as well between this team.
And they're absolutely right as well. Second and first on their debut weekend, and yeah, I wonder what their future plans are for this championship. It's a very competitive lineup that they have there, and yeah, the celebrations continue in Parc Ferme. Absolutely fantastic to see. No doubt we'll see that emotion on the podium as well. I was going to listen in, but they're talking Italian, which I don't know about you, George, but my Italian's not very good.
I'll be honest, mine isn't too good either, but nevertheless, I'm sure it's you know, out of happiness. And there we have it. Take us through the top three.
Yeah, Ivan Velasco and Jorge Cabezas, third for Mertel Motorsport, another podium to add to their championship tally for this season. Davide Scanicchio and Fabio Babini, ZRS Motorsports pairing, second place after a long, hard-fought battle for the win. But taking the victory on their debut weekend, Rosso Corsa Racing, Lorenzo Innocenti and Andrea Bellici.
Two happy boys, Andrea Bellici, Lorenzo Innocenti, just arrived in the GT Cup and winning race 2 at the Paul Ricard. Andrea, how was the first part?
Amazing, amazing. And I know I don't want to speak about my part. This guy is the first race he did in his life, we do. So imagine how I'm his coach, best friend. Imagine how much I'm happy. I don't want to talk about my race. It's him.
You are proud. And Lorenzo, yes, absolutely. You put a strong fight in the second part, and you got P1.
I inherited a very good car, but I put all my effort into it, and thanks to my coach, my team, the car was great. It was slightly oversteering, but it was good how I like it. So I pushed, I did my best. I think I did even a couple of errors, so I think I'm quite happy with the performance. And in the end, we got him in the couple of parts where I thought I was a bit quicker. So that was good. Yeah, I'm very happy. The first race, so very happy.
Good. Well done. Excellent debut for Rosso Corsa, and see you soon next time.
Thank you. Thank you. GTOpen.
let's take a look back at the action from race number 2 of the GT Cup Europe. From second, Paul Ricard. It was the Rosso Corsa racing car, Andrea Bellici, that was leading the way in the early stages. Quentin Antonelli tried to get right round the outside, but it was the number 80 of Ivan Velasco that charged through into second place, immediately setting up a very good race indeed. But Fabio Babini fought hard to get back up into second place for ZRS Motorsport, and then went about hunting down the race leader as well. It was a big charge for that number 78 as the Bochez brothers tried to make moves. This was passing the RO1 Racing Porsche, the number 21 machine as well. The AM battle fought for very hard as well, with the Q1 car making its way past the GDL. Fabio Babini ended up handing over the car to Davide Scanicchio. And the Volcano car, miserable day for them, despite this double move here, but he had to make it on a bit of a recovery drive after a puncture early on. The podium battle, very tight indeed. Alex Ryman getting his elbows out, initially passing the Q1 Track Racing Porsche, but then yielding later on the final lap. And Alex Ryman making a late move here for that spot on the podium, past the 44 of Stefano Zanini, getting his elbows out and getting the back end wagging as well. Jorge Cabezas followed him through as well into turn 12. And this was the move for the lead as Lorenzo Innocenti fought to get past Davide Scanicchio on the inside of Busse corner and give Rosso Corsa Racing a debut victory in the GT Cup Europe. And the moment that he crossed the line, the emotions were pouring out as Alex Ryman and Jorge Cabezas fought for the podium on the last lap of the race. And here we are for the podium now. Lorenzo Innocenti and Andrea Bellici will take to the top step of the podium now. And for Rosso Corsa Racing, we will hear the Italian national anthem as well for the second time today, having just heard it in the GTOpen as well.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the anthem from Italy. Merci beaucoup. The prize is given
trophies
by
will be handed out to the top 3. And just run you through the AM podium as well, which will be Nico van Dierendonk and Quentin Antonelli in the 57 Q1 Track Racing Porsche, Fernando Navarrete and Stefano Bozzoni in number 19, second in class, and Xander Prisbalak and Laurent van der Velde in the other Q1 Track Racing Porsche, number 52, third in class as well. He came home 8th overall, and those guys will have their own podium as well. But in the meantime, this is the moment for Andrea Bellici and Lorenzo Innocenti that they have been waiting for.
Jesus Pereira, por favor.
Jesus Pereira, of course, CEO of GT Sport, presenting the trophies to the winning pairing of Lorenzo Innocenti and Andrea Bellici. And, of course, to the Rosso Corsa team boss as well. And they'll spray the champagne here at Paul Ricard.
Maybe you need champagne. We got it. Oh,
yes, we most definitely have champagne here for the GT Cup Europe runners. And it's certainly looking a lot more like Ivan Velasco and Jorge Cabezas taking a slightly more commanding position in the championship as a result of that as well. As the AM podium runners look to get up on the podium as well and have their own celebrations. So they're at the third place Q1 Track Racing pairing of Xander Prisbalak and Laurent van der Velde, the class leaders in the championship going into this weekend. Another podium for them, third in class. Fernando Navarrete and Stefano Bozzoni in the number 19 Bertal Motorsports crew, which actually was a little bit further down in the championship, having had a few difficult races in Portimao and at Spa-Francorchamps, but this actually, I believe, their first class podium of the season as well. So well done to those guys. But the class winners is also from Q1 Track Racing, Quentin Antonel and Nico van Dierendonk taking the honours there. And for them would be the Belgian team that is represented twice on the podium there. Very prevalent in Carrera Cup Benelux as well, that outfit. Based in one of my favourite places, which is Drijbekenwerk in Belgium. And they will lift their trophies now and have their own champagne moment as well. Posing for the photo, of course, as well. And that wraps up the action from the GT Cup Europe here at Paul Ricard. The next round is at Monza on the 23rd and 24th of September. We'll see you then.
Put your hands up.